The most useful vegetable in this video costs less than a cup of tea, and almost everybody has been told to avoid it. It is number 1, and I will defend it properly when we get there. This is 5 vegetables that are genuinely worth what you pay for them, not the fashionable ones, not the ones with a story printed on the bag. 5 that give back more than they cost, judged on price, on how long they keep, and on what is actually in them. I have put these in order from the one worth buying to the one I would buy first if I could only buy one. None of them needs a special shop. Maybe the weekly shop has quietly got more expensive without anything new going into the trolley. Maybe cooking for 1 or 2 makes half a bag of anything feel like a waste. Maybe the appetite is smaller than it was, so what does go on the plate matters more than it used to. That last one is the reason this list is not the same as a list for a family of 5. Smaller plate, same body, the arithmetic changes. No miracle cures, no scare stories, nothing to buy, just what's actually true. Number 5, cabbage. Price it per kilo against anything else in the aisle, and very little comes close. The part that matters more for 1 or 2 people is that it keeps. A whole cabbage in a cool cupboard is still good in 3 or 4 weeks, which is not true of a bag of salad, and a bag of salad is where a lot of good intentions go to rot. It is a brassica, the same family as broccoli and sprouts, and it carries the fiber and the vitamin C that family is known for at a fraction of broccoli's price. Raw, shredded thin, it is a completely different vegetable from the boiled version most people were raised on and quietly resent. What it looks like is a quarter shredded into whatever is already happening, into a soup at the end, under a fried egg, with oil and vinegar and a bit of salt while something else cooks. A whole one costs about the same as a coffee and covers a week of side dishes, which is the sort of arithmetic that stops mattering when you are feeding 6 and starts mattering a great deal when you are feeding 1. And the next one has been unfairly demoted by a word on the packet. Number 4, frozen peas. The word is frozen, and it does a lot of damage for something that means very little. Fresh sounds better. It usually is not. A vegetable in the fresh aisle was picked days ago, traveled, sat in a warehouse, and has been losing vitamin C the entire time. A frozen pea was picked and frozen within hours. Bowsery and colleagues at the University of California, Davis published a study in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry comparing frozen and fresh produce directly across a range of nutrients. The frozen versions held up as well as fresh, and in several cases better than fresh, that had been stored for a few days, which is what fresh usually is by the time it is eaten. Peas specifically carry more protein than almost anything else in that freezer drawer. And the thing that makes them worth the money for one person is that you take out what you need and the rest stays exactly as good. Nothing wilts. Nothing gets thrown away. What it looks like is a handful straight into whatever is in the pan for the last 2 minutes. The next one is worth the money only if you stop preparing it the way most people do. Number 3, carrots. Cheap all year, keeps for weeks in the fridge and almost impossible to waste. But there is a real difference between a carrot eaten raw and the same carrot cooked, and it goes the opposite way from what people assume. The Linus Pauling Institute at Oregon State University has documented this clearly. The carotenoids in carrots, the orange pigments the body converts towards vitamin A, are locked inside tough cell walls. Cooking breaks those walls down, and a little fat in the pan helps carry what is released. So raw carrot sticks with nothing on them. The version that has been recommended as the virtuous option for 40 years is the least useful way to eat a carrot. Cooked in a bit of oil, it is one of the best value vegetables in the shop. I gave out the raw sticks advice myself for a long time on the reasoning that raw must be closer to natural. That reasoning was tidy, and it was wrong. What it looks like is roasted with whatever else is going in the oven or softened in the pan in oil before anything else joins them. And the next one is not really a vegetable at all, which turns out to matter. Number 2, mushrooms. They are a fungus, not a plant, and that is exactly why they earn their place. Mushrooms make vitamin. A punnet of ordinary mushrooms left out on a windowsill in daylight, gills facing up for half an hour to an hour, will carry substantially more vitamin D than the same punnet left in the fridge. It costs nothing, and it needs no equipment. That is a rare combination, and it is why this one sits high on the list rather than low. Bielman's group also works on ergothioneine, a compound mushrooms are unusually rich in, and most other foods are not. The research on it is still developing, and I am not going to overstate it. The vitamin D part is solid. It is free, and it takes one deliberate act of leaving something on a windowsill, which leaves the one at the top, and it is the vegetable almost everybody has been told to cut back on. Number 1. Potatoes. Cheapest calories with real nutrition attached that the shop sells. Keeps for a month in the dark. Needs no skill. And it spent 20 years being treated as something close to a confectionery, which was never a fair description. A plain potato with its skin on carries potassium, vitamin C, and fiber. And most of that fiber is in the skin that gets peeled off and binned. The thing worth knowing, and the reason this is number 1 rather than number 5, is what happens when a cooked potato cools down. Some of the starch reorganizes into a form the small intestine cannot break down. Hans Englist, whose classification of starches is still the one used, called this resistant starch. It behaves more like fiber than like sugar, feeding the bacteria further down instead of being absorbed early. So a potato boiled today and eaten cold tomorrow in a salad is not the same food as the same potato eaten hot. Reheating it keeps a good part of that change. This is not a license for chips, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. What gets done to a potato is where the damage happens, not the potato. What it looks like is boiling more than you need, keeping the rest in the fridge, and using them cold or reheated across the next 2 days. There is a second reason this one sits at the top, and it is not nutritional. A potato is the only thing on this list that nobody has to be persuaded to eat. Every other item here asks for a change in habit. This one asks for almost none, which is why it is the one most likely to still be happening in 6 months. The cheapest thing in the shop, improved by being left alone overnight. Your trolley, start to finish. The list in shopping order. Here is the whole list in the order you would actually walk past them, rather than the order of importance. Potatoes and carrots first, because both keep for weeks, and neither needs planning. A cabbage, whole, not shredded in a bag, because the bag is where the money goes. Mushrooms, and the windowsill they are going to sit on when you get home, and a bag of frozen peas that will outlast everything else in the list. 5 items, every one of them cheaper than the fashionable vegetable it sits next to. The honest part. What to actually expect. Nothing here works quickly, and anybody telling you a vegetable did something in a week is selling you something. What changes fast is the bill and the bin. Both are noticeable within one shop. What changes slowly is everything else, and it is measured in months rather than weeks. Now, what this cannot do. Vegetables do not replace protein. And if there is one thing this audience is genuinely short of, it is protein rather than vegetables. None of this replaces anything specific you have been told to eat or avoid by somebody who has actually examined you. And where the two meet, their advice wins, and it is not close. The windowsill trick is worth doing, and it is not a substitute for anything you have been prescribed. An appetite that has got smaller is not automatically a fault to be corrected. A body that has been running for 6 decades does not need the plate it needed at 30, and shrinking that plate is not a failure of will. What matters is that the smaller plate is worth more, which is the entire point of this list. And the usual way this falls apart is worth naming. People buy all 5, cook them enthusiastically for a fortnight, and go back to what they were doing. Buy one, the one you would actually eat. So, 5 vegetables, back in order. Cabbage, which keeps for a month and costs almost nothing. Frozen peas, which are fresher than fresh and never get thrown away. Carrots, cooked rather than raw in a bit of oil. Mushrooms, and an hour on the windowsill. And potatoes, cooked today and eaten cold tomorrow. 5 vegetables, no special shop. Nothing on the list costs more than the thing beside it. Tell me in the comments what you'd like explained next. I read every single one. If this was useful, a like helps it reach somebody doing the same shop with the same worry about the same bill. And subscribing makes sense only if you want the reasoning behind the advice, because that is the whole of what happens here. Here is to the healthy living years.